Season 23 starts this Friday, and of course, with Season 23 comes a bunch of Rathma changes for the Necromancer. And of course, it has been our quest to find the fastest speed farm build for the Necromancer with the new Rathma setup, and that's exactly what we're going to show you guys in this video. So let's not waste any time and get into it. So, of course, right out of the gate, we always have to say it because someone's going to comment, but no Paragon is used in this video. We're at 0 intelligence Paragon. The gear is pretty good because, you know, it's Rathma and it's been around for a really long time. So I've had some really good pieces sitting around. Not high augments, nothing crazy to write home about. But again, all intelligence Paragons removed. So in the gameplay above, we're going to show you, 105 3-minute clears with full 3.5k Paragon. I was able to do 110s at the same speed. And with really kind of basic gear, I was able to get into 95, 100 speeds, 2-3 minutes, no problem. But in case you guys didn't know, and you're playing catch up in 2.7.0, which is basically season 23, the Rathma set for the Necromancer got a complete and total rework. So let's dive into what this new setup does, right? The 2-piece, your permanent minions reduce the cooldown of Army of the Dead by 0.5 seconds each time they deal damage, and your skeletal warriors spawn faster, and your revived minions no longer expire. And that's an important thing to note here, right? The permanent minions. So Rathma makes revive permanent, right? So that's 10 minions that are permanent. You've got command skeletons, which is 7 minions that are also permanent. So that's 17 minions. And you'll notice the 6-piece says each permanent minion increases the damage of your Army of the Dead by up to 9,000%. So 500 times 17 is only 8,500. So the way we get that last bit of damage is from the Golem. The Golem gives you an additional 500%. Now, these are the only kind of permanent minions you can get. Mages are temporary, so they don't count. Simulacrums are technically minions sometimes, and sometimes they're not, but they don't count towards this setup. The only way we can get that full 9,000% is by using the Golem, is by using the skeletons, is by using Revive. 4-piece says your minions no longer take damage, and you gain 1% of that damage reduction for 15 seconds each time your minions does damage, and it maxes 75 stacks. So this is kind of like a set it and forget it one time kind of thing. And there's a lot of important things to note with this playstyle. We're going to get into how this plays at the end of the video, so make sure you stay tuned for that, because this is kind of big brain. There's a lot going on here. It's not really like your lazy set it and forget it kind of build. So Rathma's 6-piece will buff your damage by up to 9,000% for Army of the Dead, and this build is all about that Army of the Dead damage. We're also going to juice that up by using the Justice Skull Scythe, which says anytime your command skeletons are basically commanded, you get 400% increased damage. Of course, we already are using command skeletons because they're permanent minions, so the synergy between Jesseth and Rathma is pretty much mandatory. Now, because Army of the Dead is on such a massive cooldown, and of course, we get that cooldown tick down by having your minions to attack things, and so the more attack speed that you get, the more attack speed that they're going to get. So the faster they're attacking, the more you're getting cooldown reduction on Army of the Dead. But on top of that, we want to have a ton of cooldown reduction. This is a Necromancer. It's what we're all about, cooldown reduction. So how we're getting more? We're getting cooldown reduction on every piece of gear that we can possibly get. But we're also going to use the Captain Crimson set, which really synergizes with high cooldown reduction. And on top of that, Captain Crimson gives you damage per cooldown reduction that you have. So the higher you can get your cooldown, the better uptime you have on Army of the Dead, and actually you get more damage through Captain Crimson's, the higher you can get up that CDR. We're also going to use the brand new bracers that were added to the game this patch 2.70, the Bonds of Selena, which say Army of the Dead deals up to 100% increased damage and double this bonus against the active target of command skeleton. So there is a high amount of precision involved in making sure that your command skeletons is on the target and exactly the target that you want. You do not want to be numlocking command skeletons here and having them switch targets all the time and having him hit a trash mob and not get that 3 times damage bonus on the elite. This is an elite sniping build, so we're going to be jumping from elite pack to elite pack using the Ingiam. So it's important when you're in there, you got to command skeletons on that yellow, you got to command skeletons on that blue pack. Do not be commanding against trash mobs, and do not numlock your command skeletons here. Precision is key, and it kind of makes the playstyle a bit interesting, actually, to be honest. We're also going to be using the helmet Fate's Vow. Now, this is the legacy one, but the new version of Fate's Vow will have a 250% damage modifier additive, but still, it's going to be something you want to chase, of course. But on top of that, the important thing here is Army of the Dead gains the effect of Unconventional Warfare Rune. It basically makes skeletons rise from the ground, dealing 50,000% total weapon damage over 4 seconds. And we're going to combine this by actually running the rune Death Valley. And this makes it so all enemies on the screen basically get sucked in towards this center big hit of Army of the Dead. Now, of course, this skill looks really cool, and it's going to suck, again, everything in, and it's going to explode. It's a big hit. Big hit. And so that's what we're focusing on here. It's just Army of the Dead damage, getting that cooldown down as fast as we can, and then supporting Army of the Dead damage through other skills, which we're going to get into right now. So like I said, the Golem is a really nice bonus here because it's that additional 500% increased damage. And the reason the Golem is so important in this build is because this is how we get the triple damage on the Crispin Sentence. Now, you guys know, if you've been playing Necro at all, Crispin Sentence is pretty much a staple in any Necromancer build. It basically says if we stun or freeze or, you know, hard lock CC them, we get that 300% additional damage, which is huge. So we're all about CCing mobs as a Necromancer in D3. And the only way we're able to do that in this build is through Command Golem, Ice Golem. What this allows us to do is to launch an Icy Blast at the target location, which freezes all enemies for 3 seconds and increases their chance to be crit by 10% for 10 seconds. So you're going to see, as we're, you know, we are an elite hunter. So you're going to see in the gameplay above, as soon as we find that elite pack, we're launching our command skeletons in there. He's going to blow them up, freeze everything, and then we're going to Army of the Dead right on top of the elite to make sure they get that triple damage bonus to Crispin Sentence, and the Army of the Dead just blows them up. Now, of course, before that, we're going to make sure we command skeletons. Again, we'll get into the gameplay at the end. But that is why we run the Ice Golem. The Ice Golem is what's proccing our triple damage bonus of Crispin Sentence. It's actually kind of a cool and unique way to proc Crispin Sentence. It's not something that we've ever really used before. We usually use like Bone Armor Dislocation, but we are using Zeiss in this build, so we want to make sure we're staying at range, getting that maximum damage bonus we can possibly get from Zeiss, and that's not something that Bone Armor Dislocation affords us. We have to be right up in the mob's grill. So this is kind of nice, actually. It's very different. Now, again, because this is an Ingion build, we're able to spam Blood Rush, and we are really squished in this build. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. We're using a Scorched Necklace, which we'll get into in a minute. So we want to take advantage of one, you know, that microsecond iframe that we get by spamming Blood Rush, but two, we're gonna get Blood Rush potency, which gives us just more armor, which is also super nice. We're using command skeletons with the Frenzy rune. You might say, well, Fluff, why not freezing grass? That way you can maintain that triple damage bonus. Honestly, the command golem, as soon as that 3 seconds is down, basically the elites are becoming CC immune, and so it really doesn't add that much value. And Frenzy has a ton of value because it basically makes your command skeletons attack faster. And why is that good? Again, because Rathma 2-piece, the faster they attack, the more they're reducing the cooldown on your Army of the Dead. So Frenzy is just going to be a staple, probably across any Rathma build, because it just makes them attack faster, and attack faster is good. With Revive, we're using Personal Army, because again, we are squish. It gives that just that 10% increase mitigation, because again, we have 10 minions up all the time. And then lastly, we're actually running Devour with Voracious. Devour allows us to regain some of our essence that we lose from commanding the skeletons. You don't spend a ton of essence on this build, so it's not really a big concern to run out of essence in any way, shape, or form. But what this allows us to do is run the Voracious rune. And what the Voracious rune does is it reduces our resource cost reduction each time we consume a corpse. So we're going to have max stacks of this Voracious at all times. And again, the reason Voracious is really good here is because how good the Captain Crimson set is with this, right? Because Captain Crimson gives more cooldown and more damage based on our cooldown, but also less damage taken from our percentage of resource cost reduction. And again, Voracious will shoot up your resource cost reduction like crazy, therefore giving you a decent amount of damage mitigation through Captain Crimson's. Now for passives here, we're going to run Commander of the Risen Dead. This lets us basically have more uptime on the Golem and his freeze. It also reduces the cost of the command effect of command skeletons. So in those times that maybe you miss or you need to spam it a bit more often, it just gives you some nice resource cost reduction. But mostly we're taking this passive for the command Golem. cooldown reduction. We're going to run Blood as Power. You are going to take damage in this build, and you are giving yourself damage because you're spamming Blood Rush constantly. It's constantly costing you 5% health. So after you lose 100% of your life pool, you basically get 20% cooldown, which is just flat good, right? Because we're all about cooldown in this build. We're also running Grizzly Tribute because, you know, our minions are attacking all the time. So this is going to be a decent source of healing for us. You know, you do want to run a life per hit potion because that has good synergy there. You can also get life per hit instead of vitality on your bracer. I was not fortunate enough to roll really a good pair of Selenas, and I don't have that many mats non-season. But yeah, definitely pick up some life per hit where you can afford it. And we'll talk about gearing in a minute. And lastly, we're going to run Final Service. It's a second cheat death, and we'll get into why it's a second cheat death right now, actually. So if you guys didn't know, Followers got a pretty massive rework here in patch 2.7.0. And this was particularly impactful for the Necromancer because this basically allowed us to get even more cooldown reduction. And on top of that, a lot of the builds, if you guys have been following the channel for a while, we love Nemesis Bracers. You guys know I love Nemesis Bracers. It's one of the best in slot items for speed, period, especially with its synergy with Ingyam. So now we can do what's called Emanate. So now we basically just get Nemesis for free in basically every build we've ever made. So you guys will notice if you go back and look at some of our past builds that a lot of them have changed. So do take note of that. We're going to want to run the Enchantress here. The Enchantress is going to be a staple for pretty much every Necro build ever because you do get cooldown reduction, a flat 10%. As long as you get your follower up to 25k main stat, you're going to get an additional 10% cooldown reduction all the time. And again, we're all about cooldown reduction in this build. And most Necro builds are all about cooldown reduction. So this is just flat goodness. The only other really important things to note here is, of course, flavor of time on the follower. Get it in there as fast as you possibly can if you're a solo player. It's insane. Double duration of pylons. It's increased speed across the board. It is basically a power creep in Diablo 3. So get Nemesis, get flavor time on your follower as fast as you can, especially if you're a solo player. And on top of that, Oculus Ring is insane. You know, being able to stand inside those circles while you stand back in Army of the Dead is huge. I actually forgot to have my Oculus Ring on in the gameplay above, so I probably could have done actually a lot higher clears, at least probably 3 higher with the same amount of ease. Big deal. So get those 3 items on your follower as fast as you can. Everything else is kind of like whatever, and there's some guides out there on how to equip your follower and stuff like that. But those 3 things are essential, and get them just fast. So wrapping up the gear here, you know, in the cube, as we mentioned before, this is an Ingyam based build. It is an elite hunting build. So you want to, you know, spam Blood Rush, fly from elite pack to elite pack. So we're using Ingyam in the cube, so that lets us wear Jesseth. We're going to run Fate's Vow in the cube in that armor slot. And lastly, we're going to run a Ring of Royal Grandeur, which allows us to wear Captains and Rathma, locking in the 6-piece on Rathma and locking in the 3-piece on Captain Crimson. Now, on top of that, on our Necro itself, we're going to run Crimson Sentence, we talked about already, but obviously a staple in any Necro build. We're running Squirts, and then Squirts, you know, it's going to make you squish, team. You know, again, we're going to take advantage as much as possible as that iframe from Blood Rush. Stay away from mobs. Try not to get hit. There's a decent amount of mitigation from Rathma's 6-piece or 4-piece, but it does take some ramp time. But you will be pretty squished, so just be forewarned. And we'll provide some gear options at the end if you just can't stop getting one shot. But what Squirts does is basically, if we don't take damage, we get 100% damage multiplier, which is huge. So if you can try to keep that up as best as you can, try to not take damage as best you can. It's going to drop. It's fine. It happens a lot. But when it's up, it's great. We're also running COE, you know, on a Necromancer. I don't need to tell you guys, we only have 3 elements that we rotate through. It makes it infinitely better than running a COE on any other class in the game. So COE is just really, really good. When this thing rotates around the physical damage, you're going to be doing a ton of damage, and you're going to notice that, right? Because Army of the Dead is physical. For legendary gems, we're using Bane of the Trapped, and that's a no-brainer here. Zai's Stone of Vengeance, because again, we want to keep the mobs at range to get the maximum amount of juice out of that Zai's, and Death Valley lets us cast Army of the Dead at range. Now, I do want to caveat here. This is kind of weird. Army of the Dead does have a max range. So you'll notice if I try to cast Army of the Dead across the screen, it will say the target is too far away. So you have about like from here to like the blacksmith. is your maximum range from Army of the Dead. So there is a kind of maximum range, and that's just something you have to feel out. And we'll talk about that at the end in sort of the gameplay tips. Lastly, we're using Bane of the Powerful. Why Bane of the Powerful? A lot of you guys are probably gonna be like, well, why not Goguk? You actually can't really maintain Goguk in this setup. The only thing that really hits is Army of the Dead. And Army of the Dead might have a period of time when you're flying to the next elite pack where you're not casting it, or it's not going to be up within that tiny grace period of a Goguk, which is 4 seconds. So as soon as you let Goguk drop, and it would happen a lot in this setup, Goguk becomes not very good. So we're going to just run Bane the Powerful, just a harder hit of our Army of the Dead, especially after we kill elites, which we do a lot in this build. And again, you're going to want to always kill all the elites because it's going to proc your Ingyam. So you're going to have 100% uptime on your Bane of the Powerful. It's just good synergy there. For stat priority, guys, I don't know if I mentioned this, but cooldown reduction. On gloves, you know, ideally the quadfecta would be amazing. And what we mean by quadfecta is attack speed, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction would be the dream. But these gloves are obviously really, really good. Cooldown reduction, priority 1, crit damage, priority 2, attack speed, bonus. Shoulders, Rathmas, you cannot get Army of the Dead damage on gear. Period, which is kind of weird, right? The only thing you can get Army of the Dead damage on is the Fate's Vow, but that just goes in the cube. You cannot roll Army of the Dead damage bonus on any piece of gear, which is kind of strange. But yeah, so shoulders, you want to invite cooldown reduction, and you might as well go for some area damage. Doesn't really matter. You could go for life here as well if you're dying a lot. In helmet, invite crit chance with a diamond socketed in the helmet for that additional cooldown reduction. You guys see where I'm going with this. On the chest, invite life. You could do reduced damage from elites. You could do armor. Doesn't really matter. Pretty open there, but of course, get those sockets with intelligence. For the belt, Captain Crimson's absolute must here. Invite life and armor. Easy. Again, anywhere you can get physical resistance on the secondary is going to be really, really quite good. For captains, you can either run the pants or the boots. We went for the pants, and invite and armor with 2 sockets for intelligence gems is the go-to play here on softcore. The boots would be Rathmas. Invite armor. Movement speed is going to be the go-to here. You could do regen instead of movement speed depending on how you want to allocate your Paragon. For the Jesseth, we want the dream roll, something like this, right? High damage roll, percent damage, attack speed, and cooldown reduction. The highest 2 priorities here would probably be attack speed and cooldown reduction, with that damage coming in with the tie with that attack speed. But priority 1, get that cooldown reduction. But you can get something so good like this that you can roll off your intelligence roll. And yeah, that's the total dream. We don't necessarily care about essence on the secondary in this particular setup. We're not using Relentless Shadowhook or anything like that. So if you get a Jesseth that's really good and doesn't have essence on it, not the end of the world. It's good. On the shield, invite, you could do armor or life. Crit chance, cooldown reduction, those are the main thing. We are not immune to CC effects here, so getting any secondary that says reduce duration of control and pairing effects is good. For convention of elements, the dream roll, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction with the socket. Prism sentence is insanely hard to roll. But this would be the dream, right? Attack speed, crit damage, cooldown reduction, socket. That is going to be really difficult to pull off. If you're going to be, if you've already got a really good weapon, you know, you probably want to start focusing your reforges on Christmas Sentence. Christmas Sentence is just really hard to get to roll well. I think this isn't even ancient, and this is probably the best Christmas Sentence I've ever gotten in all my playtime. So it's either wear this or Ring of Royal Grandeur, whichever one rolls better for you. For the necklace, ideally here, probably just like a physical crit damage, crit chance roll with a socket. I happen to have one with cooldown reduction on it, so it's like, screw it, I'll just keep that because cooldown reduction is really good. But missing that 10 crit does hurt. Missing that physical damage does hurt. So this quartz is not very good. Now, lastly here, we did want to talk about the gameplay, right? Because this isn't going to be the easiest build you've ever played, and it will take probably several riffs to get the playstyle down. It might feel clunky at first, but once you get it, it feels pretty smooth, and it's pretty fresh. The playstyle is really fresh. So immediately, as soon as you enter the rift, you need corpses, right? You got to get revive going with 10 revive dudes, so you can get that, you know, fat 6-piece Rathma damage bonus. And what I'm going to recommend you do in this build is Numlock Devour. And so that's going to be a problem, right? Because you're going to kill that first pack like this, and then you're going to accidentally consume all those corpses. Now, the interesting thing here about Numlock is you can cancel Numlock on the fly by holding down your force movement key. And so you'll see I'm Numlocking right now, but I'm not consuming any of these corpses because right now I'm holding down my force movement. But as soon as I let it go, I eat all the corpses. So the very first pack, do you enter into the rift? You're going to want to kill with the big army of the dead, and then you're going to want to revive those while holding down your force move. And then after that, you don't ever have to worry about it again. You've got your 10 dudes out. They're going to be with you for the rest of the rift. It's just going to be that first pack that's a little strange to get those damage numbers up. Okay, so then what, right? So you've killed that first pack. Hopefully it's not an elite pack right at the door, but that's fine if it is. So you kill that first pack, you got your 10 dudes out, and then you're hunting for your first elite, right? So we're gonna pretend that this Plague Nest is elite. So you're gonna come in and be like, oh, there's my elite, and you're gonna immediately want to command skeleton that target. So you're gonna make sure you proc maximum bonds of Selena, and your command skeletons are attacking that target. At that point, you're going to boom, send your golem in there to freeze all the enemies, and then as soon as they're frozen, you cast Army of the Dead and get that triple damage bonus of Crispin Sends and that additional crit chance from the command golem. Now, this is where it gets a little funky because again, there is that max range on Army of the Dead for some reason. So there's gonna be times you're gonna be like holding your force standstill key and you're not gonna be able to cast Army of the Dead. You're gonna be like, what the heck, cast, man? It's because it has that max range, right? So then boom, as soon as you kill that elite pack, you're gonna get your Ingon stack and you're gonna be flying through the rift, trying to find your next pack, and then the same thing happens. Like, oh, there's my next elite. I'm gonna make sure they're commanded. I'm gonna freeze, Army of the Dead, boom, everything's one shot, and then you get your Ingon proc and you fly to the next pack. It's really as simple as that, and it might feel a little clunky at first, but once you get the playstyle down, it feels pretty good. And Army of the Dead's a pretty cool skill. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It is a little underwhelming, the damage on this, right? For it being a set rework, Bone Spear will still be better. If you guys are looking for the top, solo speed farm build for the Necromancer, it's still going to be the Ice Spear build, and we'll link that down below. But, this could get a damage buff. We don't know. It could get a damage buff in the future, and this playstyle won't change if the damage changes. But this is still probably like rank 2, rank 3 solo speed farm for the Necromancer. It's still quite good. Maybe to compare it against the Bone Spear is a bit unfair, but it is fun. I think it is more fun than the Bone Spear. The Bone Spear is just like, okay, spawn your clones and throw spears, right? Like, that's it. And there's quite a bit more going on here, and I do enjoy that. So hopefully you guys enjoy it too. That's pretty much going to do it for the video. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below, or do stop by the Twitch stream. Ask your questions there. We are always more than willing to help out. We'll be blasting personally the Rathma Necro. I'll probably be the only person streaming the Rathma Necro because the Firebird Wiz is quite strong in season 23. So if you guys want to hang out, come hang out. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. Again, as always, if you like the content, if you like to watch me make these build guides, if you enjoy my face, consider supporting the stream either by subscribing on Twitch or donating through Patreon or whatever you're comfortable with. Or just come watch, come hang out, come lurk. We got plenty of lurkers. That's fine too. But yeah, as always, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.